What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Willpower Cup once again, and the team we're going to take a look at today is Greninja, Galarian Rapidash, and Cladoll. Now, we've seen all three of these Pokemon already showcased on this channel, and the reason I'm showcasing all three of them together is I truly believe that these three are some of the strongest three in the entire meta. That I have available at least, and when put together in a team in an ABB style, they perform extremely well. I would always recommend running Ice Beam over Scorching Sands on Cladoll. There are virtually no negatives, as you can see on the right there. It just seems like the better moves to go for. You have super effective coverage into the Flyers, which you do have with Rock Tomb, but you also have super effective into opposing Cladolls, which is very important. Yeah, let's hop into some battles. Alright, into the first match, we've got Cladoll into our Greninja. So this is a pretty good lead. Of course, they can just fully farm us down in a like 2-shield scenario, but they end up safe switching into a Gallade, and Gallade is met with the Galarian Rapidash. The new pacing on Gallade allows them to get to the Leaf Blade in 5 charms on the first and 4 on the second. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go for the Mega Horn right before they make it to Leaf Blade number 2. That way I'm not lowering my defense, so if my opponent commits the shield, I know I can survive the charm and still go for the full Fairy Wind farm down. They will throw the Leaf Blade here after committing the shield. We get the full farm down and we come out with a Mega Horn loaded. I wait the turn to make sure it's a Cladoll that comes back in. It is a Cladoll, so we full send the Mega Horn. That does massive damage, putting them into the red health range. I come in with my Cladoll, expecting my opponent to instantly pivot, and that is exactly what my opponent does, which allows me to make it to the Rock Tomb, and they do not get to catch up on a charge move. I will now look to overfarm here, go for the catch on a Micro Ninja, and the opponent is forced to throw energy, or else I would make it to a charge move. They do full send the Power Whip to pick up the knockout on the Greninja, but at this point this game is over. We get the full Mud Slap farm down of the Hatterene. We come out with an Ice Beam loaded, and Ice Beam is super effective into the opposing Cladoll, and in the red health range it easily picks up the knockout, and we are able to take that win. Okay, into the next match, we've got Greninja into Cladoll once again. So yes, there's a lot of Cladolls in the lead. The main reason they end up safe switching into an Annihilate, and I have a fantastic answer. Their charge move is super effective, but if I outpace, it does not matter. I full send the Wild Charge, that picks up the knockout, and because their fast move is double resist, I can full send the Wild Charge right away, and if they come back with a Cladoll, I will be able to make it to a Mega Horn. What I was going to say is that the reason I wanted to run Greninja on the lead is because the most common leads that I was seeing were things like Sableye and Cladoll, and Greninja just has positive play into all of those Pokemon. I believe there was, oh yeah, Ice Fang, Shadow Drapion as well. So Greninja was just very strong into all three, and I was like, okay, this looks like a Pokemon that I definitely want to lead. In the back is a Mandibuzz, and I kind of make a strange play here. I pivot into my Cladoll, but it's actually not as weird as you might think, because both of our fast moves really aren't doing that much damage. Because Cladoll is so bulky, these air slashes really don't add up all that much, and especially after I connect with a Rock Tomb to lower their attack, that is also super effective damage. So even if they have a super effective Foul Play or a Dark Pulse here, I can now live this very comfortably and make it to another Rock Tomb. So the opponent will go for a super effective Foul Play. It doesn't even look like 2 of those will pick up the knockout. They end up going into the Cladoll of their own, which means now I can connect with an Ice Beam. They let that go, maybe anticipating that they got the catch, and that I went for the Rock Tomb, but that is not the case. I'm now going to stay in, force them to throw their energy. Now I can come in with my Greninja, look for the full Water Shuriken farm down, and now all I have to do is make it to the back-to-back Hydro Cannons. Is Hydro Cannon enough from this range to pick up the knockout on the Mandibuzz? We're going to have to find out. We grab the final shield from my opponent. Here comes Hydro Cannon number 2. Is this enough? No, it leaves the opponent into the red health range. They make it to a charge move on 1 HP. Is this Aerial Ace enough to pick up the knockout on the Glassy Greninja? No, it is not. Greninja lives that on 1 HP, able to make it to one final Hydro Cannon, and Hydro Cannon from this range easily picks up the knockout on the Mandibuzz, and we are able to take that win. Okay, into the next match, we've got Greninja into Cladoll Okay, is that 3 in a row? What is happening? Okay, the opponent safe switches into a Pawniard this time, so a little bit different of a safe switch at least, and I come in with Cladoll. Now, Cladoll would take super effective damage from both Night Slash and X-Scissor, and I'm worried that would allow them to get a Fury Cutter farm down. So I actually commit the shield, and now I'm going to under-tap the Rock Tomb, because I know this isn't enough to knock out, but one more Mud Slap after would, and if they made it to another charge move, then I would be very easily able to survive that. Their Cladoll comes back in, but I have a 1 energy, or 1 Mud Slap head start, allowing me to make it to the Ice Beam before they do, and Ice Beam is super effective damage. It puts them into the yellow health range, and they will be forced to throw energy, or else I will make it to a Rock Tomb here, and that's exactly what they're going to do. I can just let my Cladoll finally go down, and then I can look to get an energy lead on either of my 2 Pokemon. I come in with Greninja. I will have to let 1 Rock Tomb go, because I don't want to go down 2 shields in the matchup without knowing what's in the back. And in the back is an Ice Fang Drapion, so this looks like a very tricky matchup to get out of. I will end up committing the shield on the Aqua Tail, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to farm up 2 back-to-back wild charges, and then I will hopefully throw on the Sampitai on the second wild charge, and if I do, I can farm up to the back-to-back Hydro Cannons on my Greninja to win this game, but the opponent has other plans. They no-shield the wild charge, their Drapion goes down, and we are able to take that win. Tricky lead in the next match, we've got Rapidash, but fortunately for us, Rapidash will get outpaced to the Hydro Cannon unless they go for a Body Slam, but Body Slam is pretty non-threatening to the Greninja. Yes, it puts us into the yellow health range because these Fairy Winds have added up, but that does not matter because here comes a neutral Hydro Cannon. The opponent ends up respecting that and then pivoting into a Annihilate, but we pivot into the Cladoll at the exact same time, and I can actually survive a Shadow Rage Fist here pretty comfortably. The only problem is after this Rage Fist connects, their counters are boosted, which means they can actually look for the full counter farm down if they commit the shield. I will go for the Ice Beam in case they commit the no shield, but no, my opponent does commit the shield. They look for the full counter farm down and they are going to get it. So what I'm going to do here is they're 2 off the move. I'm going to go through 2 Fairy Winds and then pivot into my Greninja, but no, my opponent my opponent was not 2 away. I end up committing the shield, getting the full farm down with the Rapidash. And now it's about what wants to take this energy. Back in comes their own Rapidash. I will throw my Wild Charge on the Sampitai with their potential Mega Horn. The opponent ends up going for a Body Slam bait, but that is okay because Wild Charge is neutral damage, and we are both very glassy Pokemon, so that picks up the knockout. Now, what is in the back? It is a Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz will be hit with a super effective Wild Charge. And then I will look to pivot into my Greninja, which is only 2 off the move. 1 Shuriken, 2 Shurikens. We live the air slashes. It looks like that might have even been a Sampitai, but Hydro Cannon picks up the knockout on the Mandibuzz, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Greninja into Cladoll once again. Holy moly, I didn't even realize how many Cladoll leads I was getting, but this one is actually going to stay in, so I'm watching for the catch here. They do not go for it, so I'm going to throw the Hydro Cannon on the Sampitai with a potential Rock Tomb or Scorching Sands. The opponent ends up committing the shield, so already know what I'm going to do here. I'm going to commit the shield as well. They end up going for the Rock Tomb, which means they will be able to survive the next Hydro Cannon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overfarm pretty significantly, farm up to the back-to-back charge moves, but instead, the opponent makes a pretty nice catch onto Drapion. But Drapion, after being hit with the Hydro Cannon, will have to now face a Cladoll. And yes, they are on Ice Fang, which means Ice Fang and Aqua Tail are super effective, but Cladoll can live both. And now we get the full Mud Slap farm down coming out with a charge move loaded, and Ice Beam is super effective onto the Cladoll. The question is, does the opponent let this go, knowing that we have a Hydro Cannon banked on the Greninja? No, they do not. I mean, yes, they do. They let the Hydro Cannon go. They do not commit the shield. They pick up the knockout with an Ice Beam of their own, and now in comes Rapidash. In the back is a Pawniard, and Pawniard is a pretty tricky Pokemon to deal with because they have really nice pacing here. They will go for the Night Slash bait. I will look up to farm up to the back-to-back wild charges, but my opponent is going to outpace me here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to full send the wild charge, pivot into my Greninja, go for the Hydro Cannon, hoping that this is enough to pick up the knockout on the Pawniard, and it is. It leaves them on 1 HP. We get the Water Shuriken farm down. Back in comes the Cladoll. Cladoll will get the Mud Slap farm down, but not before I'm able to make it to a wild charge on my Rapidash, and this is double resisted damage, but on 1 HP it picks up the knockout on the Cladoll, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Sableye on the lead, so this is a fantastic lead. Not only do we outpace the opponent, but we even outpace them to a foul play, which is resisted damage. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go for the Hydro Cannon. That connects. That does put pretty solid chip. The opponent doesn't even farm up to a potential Power Gem or Dazzling Gleam, so I will just let this go. It is only the foul play, and now in comes Cladoll, but my opponent pivots at the exact same time, pivoting into their Greninja. Now, I know that Cladoll, I believe, can win the ones in this matchup, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of crazy, unless the opponent successfully gets like 2 Night Slash baits. But they actually do end up baiting with a Night Slash first. And now I will just let the next charge move go no matter what it is, because I know one Hydro Cannon will not be enough to pick up the knockout, and I will be able to make it to a Rock Tomb. Hydro Cannon, we live it on 1 HP, we make it to the Rock Tomb. This will either grab a shield from the opponent, or they will have to let their Greninja go down. They end up shielding that, pivoting into their Sableye, and now in comes the Greninja. Greninja able to make it to the Night Slash after only 2 more Water Shurikens. Absolutely absurd pacing. That pegs with a knockout on the Sableye. Now looking to pivot instantly into my Galarian Rapidash here. It's just about what is that final Pokemon in the back. We come in with the Rapidash. We end up getting the Hydro Cannon catch onto the Rapidash, which is kind of unfortunate. We let that go. We get the Fairy Wind farm down. We still don't know what's in the back, but it is a Hawlucha, and Hawlucha has super effective poison jabs, but they're not enough to pick up the knockout on the Rapidash. Rapidash makes do a wild charge. That one-shots the Hawlucha, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, another Cladoll lead. Would you believe it? Absolutely insane. The opponent is also staying in this matchup, which is pretty nice. I'm going to do the exact same thing, look to play to the Sandpie with my Hydro Cannon, but the opponent ends up overfarming this time. So if they overfarm even more, I'm going to be able to make it to a second Hydro Cannon on the Sandpie, and it looks like the opponent did throw, because I did not see a Mudsap go through. No, instead they pivoted into their Drapion, only to get fully Mudsap farm down after that Hydro Cannon connects. Back in comes their Cladoll, but Cladoll will have to full send either an Ice Beam or a Shadow Ball to do any meaningful damage. They do full send the Ice Beam. It's not enough to pick up the knockout. I'm trying to Mudslap them down into a range where a Ice Beam will be enough to pick up the knockout, but it isn't. They live on 1 HP. They're going to throw a charge move here, and actually that might be better, because that could set up farm for the Rapidash in the back. So in comes the Rapidash, but in the back is a Morpeko. All I have to do is farm up to the back-to-back wild charges, and this game is over. So I will commit the shield on the first. Highly expecting this opponent to go for a Psychic Fangs bait, but it does not matter, because I can now make it to the back-to-back wild charges before they make it to another charge move. The opponent sees this, so they resign the match, and we are able to take that win. Bit of an awkward lead. In the next match, we've got Greninja into Murkrow. The only good thing about this matchup is that we do outpace, and of course our fast and charge moves would basically one-shot this Pokemon because it's so glassy. The opponent will end up going for a charge move right before I make it to Hydro Cannon number 2, so very nice counter for my opponent, which means in order to outpace, I need to under-tap the move. But the opponent ends up pivoting into a Mandibuzz, getting the catch of the Hydro Cannon, but all that does is put them in range where one wild charge will be enough to pick up the knockout. I know I can live any one charge move here, so I will let this go, unless it is the Shadow Ball, which it can learn, but most are not on it in this meta. I can now go for the wild charge after over farming past 100 energy. Wild charge from this range picks the knockout on the Mandibuzz, and if it's that Pokemon that comes back in, no it is not, is a Cladoll, which means I'm going to go for the Mega Horn right away, hoping that my opponent expects the wild charge. They do. They end up letting that go. That is absolutely massive. We also pivot into the Greninja, outpacing to the charge move, getting to the Night Slash. Night Slash will end up picking up the knockout on the Cladoll. They're putting all of their trust in the Murkrow, and that is really awkward for me because I have a full HP Cladoll, which will get outpaced, and a Rapidash. So what I will do is I will come in with my Cladoll. I will commit the shield on the first in case I can make it to a Rock Tomb before my opponent makes it to a charge move. I am going to throw on alignment here, but I need to do this in order to outpace, and we get to the Rock Tomb. That will grab the final shield from the opponent. I would end up waiting the turn, going for the catch on my Rapidash, but the opponent doesn't commit to the farm down. They throw their energy, which is really nice, and now it's a race. Can I get the full farm down? Not before the opponent makes one final charge attack. This is super effective, but remember, they are debuffed. Foul play, it puts us into the deep red. It's Mudslap versus Peck. We get the Mudslap farm down, and we are able to take that win. Yeah, I mean, this team, is pretty self-explanatory. Greninja, its water typing is just so neutral into the majority of this meta. Rapidash has insane coverage, super effective coverage into all of the most common Pokemon, and if you're really good with energy management and counting, I highly recommend this Pokemon for this cup, even though this is the final day of the cup. And then that said, we've got Cladoll in the back, and Cladoll is of course just a neutral beast. It's got great coverage with Mud Slap, Ice Beam, and Rock Tomb, and that's why it's the #1 ranked Pokemon. It's also just got great bulk, which rounds out this team because we've got two pretty glassy Pokemon on the lead. But yeah, before we end the video, I want to say a special thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Green Mustache, Sohan Patil, and Eliana, as well as the legend trainer members on this channel: Andrew Pitten, Musichu, Noodleman, Speedster, Estros, Fast Eddie Boss, Jamie Finn, CD Slaskus, and Castle. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace!